Hello, everyone. My name is Francis Donald. Because Michael will be flying home to Finland in a couple of hours, he asked me to host today's and tomorrow's full moon webinars, and then he'll be back with you on Thursday. So the Tibetan has made it clear that there will be a new world religion, and though it will be some time before it is fully manifested, in DK's words, quote, the blueprints are already drawn. Humanity's recognition that the same essential truths lie at the core of all religions is creating a desire for a unified approach. At the same time, prayer is being expanded into meditation, and as DK says, desire has been lifted into mental aspiration, which leads to an inner experience of God immanent rather than God transcendent, which is the traditional religious approach. So with this has come an expansion from a desire for individual liberation to a heartfelt recognition of the spiritual needs of humanity. Groups both in and outside traditional religions have been formed to address these needs. And the aggregate of these groups, DK tells us, is to be found the nucleus of the New World religion, which will demonstrate inclusivity. DK says, the religions of the future will, for the progress of humanity, will account for the progress of humanity by its recognition of a divine plan, historically proved, scientifically applied, discipline and training will enable mankind to function under the control of the inner divinity or interior spiritual man. This training will also reveal to them the fact of God immanent in all forms and will enable them to participate in that great planetary movement now slowly taking place, whereby God immanent is entering into a closer relation with God transcendent via the spiritual hierarchy of the earth. Okay. The keynote of the New World religion will be divine approach. Quote, draw near to him and he will draw near to you, unquote. The method for this approach will be alignment through invocation, resulting in an increased awareness of God immanent. DK says, when the God immanent in every human heart is awakened and functioning, even if only in a small degree, the potency of worship as an act of invocative approach to God will prove amazing and miraculous in its results. A response beyond man's deepest hopes will be evoked from Christ and his group of workers. One of the ways that this will be brought about is through unified invocation on specific days that will be recognized throughout the world. On a secular level, we already have this with Earth Day. To this end, DK suggests worldwide observance of the three spiritual festivals that are familiar to all of us. He says, the three festivals would serve to unite in closer spiritual ties the Eastern and Western believer. They express divinity and manifestation through the place where the will of God is known, through the spiritual hierarchy where the love of God is fully expressed, and through humanity whose task it is intelligently to work out God's plan in love and goodwill to all men. So before we begin our guided meditation, let's look at what DK says about the festival we will begin observing today. The Festival of Humanity. This will be the festival of the spirit of humanity, aspiring to approach nearer to God, seeking conformity to the divine will to which Buddha called attention, dedicated to the expression of goodwill which is the lowest aspect of love to which Christ called attention, and of which he was the perfect expression. It will be the day preeminently on which the divine nature of man will be recognized, and his power to express goodwill and to establish right human relations, because of his divinity, will be stressed. On this festival, we are told, Christ has for nearly 2,000 years represented humanity and has stood before the hierarchy as the God-man, the leader of his people, and the eldest in a great family of brothers. This will therefore be a festival of deep invocation and appeal. It will express a basic aspiration towards fellowship and for human and spiritual unity. It will represent the effect in the human consciousness of the work of the Buddha and of the Christ. It will be held at the time of the full moon of Gemini. The first 2 days of this festival are days of renunciation and detachment. The renunciation DK speaks of is, quote, renunciation of all which could hinder our usefulness as channels of spiritual force. The keynote for this first of 3 meditations of the Gemini full moon is love. In a letter to the disciple BSD, DK gives the following meditation. I pledge myself to the path of love. I demand of my soul that I, the spirit and form, shall act as a channel for compassion and as an instrument for love until I know myself to be love itself. I am that love. With pure intent I serve. This love and zeal in me must feed the aspiration of my fellow men. To this, in knowledge full, I pledge myself. So with that, let us begin our meditation. I'll start and end with an Om. Withdraw your consciousness from the personality and its vehicles, and enter deeply into the presence of the soul. Feel yourself established as a soul within the field of light, love, and spiritual power. Merge yourself as a soul into a deep sense of the group soul. Now, imaginatively unite in soul with the spiritually minded people of the world and with the men and women of goodwill. Now, visualize the group soul merging into the one soul of humanity. Realize that there is no my soul and thy soul. Deeply realize naught is but me. Imagine a potent point of tension fed by the will aspect of the soul in accordance with your soul ray, gathered at the mental unit and forming the foundation of the Antakarana. Now imaginatively visualize your dual-colored individual or rainbow bridge, your individual Antakarana or rainbow bridge, connecting your lower mind, centered in the mental unit, with the manasic permanent atom, and subsequently with the Buddhic and Atmic permanent atoms of the spiritual triad. Use the color indigo if you do not know your soul and personality rays. Otherwise, use the colors of your soul and personality rays with the soul ray color more prominent. Now, imagine your individual Antakarana merging with a group Antakarana, which is colored with all the 7 colors, but primarily the deep indigo blue of the second ray, both reaching into the realms of the spiritual triad. Your individual Antakarana and ray qualities and the individual Antakaranas of all group members with their ray qualities are visualized as part of the group Antakarana. Attempt to deeply feel this connection. Inwardly, and in continued identification with the group soul, affirm the great word of power, I see the greatest light. As you imaginatively project a line of vivid, living white light into triadal realms, along, across the individual and group Antakaranas, from an established point of individual and group tension on the mental plane. Project this line of vivid living white light into the triadal realms. Now, in the presence of this great light of the spiritual triad, attempt to feel the presence of the Great White Brotherhood, the Lodge of Masters, the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. Now, inwardly and with heartfelt gratitude, offer your salutations to the Masters and to the head of the hierarchy, the Christ. Salutations to the Buddha, the Lord of Light and Wisdom. Salutations to the Christ, the Master of all Masters. Salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we work most closely. Salutations to Master Morya. Salutations to Master Kuthumi. Salutations to Master Dual Kul. Salutations to the spiritual hierarchy of our planet. Now imaginatively raise your thought to Shambhala, the center where the will of God is known, and with deepest reverence and in all humility attempt, identified as the group soul, to attune with the presence of Sanat Kumara, standing at the center of Shambhala. We'll sound a long, silent Om, and I'll sound it out loud, as you imagine the group imbued with his energy. Realize that Shambhala is the planetary center through which the energies of the constellations and the planets initially enter according to the law of assembly, especially at full moon opportunities, to be distributed to all sentient beings upon the earth. Now let us align briefly with the spiritual qualities emanating from the three planetary rulers of the sign Gemini. Mercury, the exoteric ruler, revealing the nature of the planets of opposites. Venus, the esoteric ruler, uniting the pairs of opposites. And the Earth, the hierarchical ruler, the field of service. This section of the meditation will be expanded on in the 3 days following the full moon. Now let us raise our imaginative group consciousness to the solar logos, expressing through our sun and the solar system. Attempt to feel that the great second ray of the solar logos, the God of love wisdom, is pouring through all planets, Shambhala, and every monad, soul, and personality on planet Earth. Now let us focus our imaginations on the constellation Gemini, radiating the light of interplay. This is a line of light beams, revealing that which opposes, or the basic duality of manifestation, the relationship of spirit and of form. It is the conscious light of that relationship. Open yourself to feel the energy quality of Gemini, attempting to realize its profound relationship to the second ray of love's wisdom, and via Mercury, Venus, and the Earth to the fourth, fifth, and third and second rays, respectively. Now let's attempt to realize the connection of the Gemini energy to the forces of reconstruction, which make possible the rebuilding of human civilization and the planet, according to the plan indicated by the forces of restoration. The entire process pursued in an illumined manner within the light shed by the forces of enlightenment. So let's make the connection between the Gemini energies, which hope and help to reconstruct human civilization. Now let us ponder deeply on the mantra for Gemini, the esoteric mantra. I recognize my other self, and in the waning of that self, I grow and glow, and attempt to grasp its esoteric meaning and significance. Notice the perspective in this mantra, the point of consciousness that's recognizing the other self is within the soul self, because he's recognizing that his other self is waning. So that's the diminution of the personality as I grow and glow, as the soul aspect grows and glows. Now let's focus our meditative attention on the Christ and the Buddha, realizing their brotherhood as they represent the West and East and the spiritual union of the two hemispheres. Attempt to realize the manner in which they stand for the constellation Gemini, the brothers in the light. Prepare for the day of the full moon itself, when Christ preaches the last sermon of the Buddha before the assembled hierarchy and the hearts and minds of all human beings, by pondering on the following words from the last sermon of the Buddha. Herein, O Ananda, let a brother, as he dwells in the body, so regard the body that he, being strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful, may, whilst in the world, overcome the grief which arises from the body's cravings. Affirm in yourself the fact that you can be strenuous, thoughtful, and mindful in the overcoming of the grief which arises from the body's cravings, and resolve to do so and be so. With profound gratitude to the Buddha for all he has done to illumine humanity, we now refocus our attention on the Christ. With the utmost heartfelt attentiveness of which we are capable, we listen inwardly, imagining that we hear the Christ sounding the great invocation. We allow a period for the silent absorption of his imagined sounding. It is said that on the 3 days of preparation prior to the full moon, the Christ speaks the great invocation alone. Imagine that we hear the Christ sounding the invocation, beginning now. Again, listening inwardly with great care, we imagine the Christ and the entire hierarchy intoning the first stanza of the great invocation. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. Let us contemplate the deep significance of these words. We imagine the illumination of humanity and the planet. We see an enlightened human race and our planet as a great station of light. Imagine the illumination of humanity and the planet. Visualize an enlightened human race and our planet as a great station of light. On each of the 3 days before the day of the Gemini full moon, Christ and his hierarchy are said to emphasize a distinct keynote. In imagined concert with the Christ and the spiritual hierarchy, we contemplate the first keynote described by Master DK as follows. The keynote of love, in its hierarchical sense, free from sentiment, emotion, and personal emphasis, the love that sacrifices and understands, that acts with strength and decision, and that works on behalf of the whole and not in the interests of any group or individual. We envision this type of love growing in ourselves and in all human beings. We imagine how we may apply this type of hierarchical love in our lives. We affirm our solidarity with the Buddha, the Christ, and the assembled hierarchy. We seek to identify with them and to merge our purpose with their purpose. We imaginatively merge with them and bless the world in silence. we pause for a moment of appreciation of the illumined, loving energies of the constellation Gemini, and feel ourselves imbued with these energies, which are growing in strength as the full moon approaches. As if in union with the Christ, the hierarchy, and all disciples in the world, we sound together the first stanza of the Great Invocation, sensing the redemptive union of light and love. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. Thank you very much for joining the group today. There'll be a continuation tomorrow at the same time. And we'll be focusing on the keynote resurrection. And then Michael will lead the third phase of the introductory on Thursday. So thanks again, and blessings to all of you. Goodbye.